I'd now like to welcome my fellow panelists on stage because we have an ambitious agenda with wonderful speakers. So let's not waste a second. We have Carla Wentzel, the CEO of Polska Group Poland. We have Chris Heron, the new Secretary General of AVERE, the European Association for E-Mobility. Lucie Mattera, returning to the New Mobility Summit for her second year in a row, the Secretary General of ChargeUp Europe. And I think it's your first time, Eddy, is that correct? Eddy Liegeois from the European Commission DG Move. Welcome to my fellow panelists. As I said, we have an ambitious agenda for this panel on ambition, and so we'll dive right in. I think that we are in a very precarious moment in our industry, and you can hear that in the discussions today. There's been a lot of bad news lately about our sector. Just today, it was announced that Northvolt, the European battery manufacturing company, announcing 20% across-the-board layoffs. That's not a good sign for any of us. There was another news article today that Berlin and Rome are now joining up to try to delay the application of the 2025 emissions reduction targets. And yet, on the other hand, we have a new commission that is beginning to take office today. Candidate designates for the various commission roles are now starting to be briefed and get ready for their hearings in front of the European Parliament. And the Parliament looks very different than that from the last European Commission. All of that is the context that we find ourselves in today. And just quickly, if you think about what happened in the last mandate of the European Commission, an entire legislative framework for a clean energy transition was successfully laid. They passed laws regarding governance and application of public charging infrastructure, of non-public charging infrastructure for electric vehicles, of the actual increasing growth of the fleet size of zero-emission vehicles, both light-duty and heavy-duty vehicles. They passed laws on critical raw materials and batteries in order to onshore and develop an entirely indigenous European supply chain for batteries, and soon-to-be recycling of batteries. So an entire legislative framework was successfully made. And yet, at the same time, we're hearing these concerning news stories, and we're seeing them in our own corporate activities and practices. And so I turn to our panelists here to ask, was it adequate? And what more needs to be done under the new commission? So the very first question is exactly that. Were the Fit for 55 policies in the European Green Deal enough to ensure the development of a new mobility as a pillar of industrial and economic development? And maybe I'll start with the reverse order of panelists, and we'll end back with Eddy, our commission representative.
So thanks very much. I'd like to start by saying that decarbonization is one of the most important responsibilities of our generation for future generations. And when it comes to individual mobility, there's no better technology than electric. But unfortunately, there are question marks in the media among customers about the future of electricity. And we absolutely have to convince customers that electric cars bring benefit, for sure. From a commercial point of view, working for the Volkswagen Group, when you invest in electromobility, the cost of the technology is very high, particularly at the beginning. Between 2023 and 2027, the Volkswagen Group will invest more than 120 billion euros into digitalization and electrification. And to put this in perspective, we are in a difficult time in that the market is not as strong in Europe as it was prior to COVID. The market is down 2 million vehicles. It collapsed, as we all know, in the pandemic, and it has not come back to the levels that we anticipated before. So as a manufacturer, we have less sales than we expected. But nonetheless, we have to continue to invest in electromobility. And I'm really happy to say that today, I think we have some proof of this investment, of the structures that have been put in place. We're fulfilling our tasks. We're very proud to present here today the ID.7. The ID.7 has a range, the Pro S has a range of more than 700 kilometers. This overcomes one of the major considerations about range anxiety. And I really would like to invite you to take a look at the cars, to test drive the cars. We have 8 cars on show. We also have here the e-tron, the e-tron GT. Now, when we talk about charging and charging inconvenience, you can charge the GT in 10 minutes, and you can travel 280 kilometers in 10 minutes charge. So again, I think we really have overcome some of those things. So in summary, I would say, talking from the motor industry, we've done what we can to make this, but we do need support. We definitely need support with framework agreements, which help us to persuade customers that an electric vehicle is a good vehicle to have.
Thank you very much. I hope we'll come back to the topics of both the support that you need from other sectors and from other players in the ecosystem, as well as the role of technological development in driving the transition forward. But first, let's finish this round.
Yeah, thank you. First key message, is the Green Deal enough? Key message, the Green Deal and its targets for 2035 for zero-emission car sales have to stay. They provide necessary investment certainty for all of this ecosystem in terms of the direction of travel we're going on. And the cars, but also the charging, the batteries, the software. There's a whole load of investment that's dependent on the demand for these vehicles growing as we expect towards those targets. But, and I would agree with my colleague from Volkswagen, alone those targets are not enough to deliver the growth we all want from this ecosystem. The report earlier this month from Mario Draghi was quite condemnatory here. He concluded that although we've set these 2035 targets as Europe, and we've started with a whole patch of legislation to enact them, we haven't combined it with the industrial policy, which we really need to create the enabling conditions for our industries to grow. So our key message would be that with urgency, we need to keep that certainty, but we need to couple it with the enabling conditions to allow the whole ecosystem to compete. If we take away one of those elements, my big concern would be that China's lead will progress and become unassailable and will close the door to getting some of these opportunities here in Europe, which we want. 3 very quick things to take into the rest of the discussion on what those enabling conditions would look like. Firstly, stable market incentives from member states. It's been a big problem this year that we've had flip-flopping across national markets to change the incentives on offer to consumers. They should be stable. Secondly, of course, the build-up of charging infrastructure at a rapid speed. But Lucie, I'm sure you'll cover that in more detail than me. And then thirdly, a ramp-up of finance to really address the bottlenecks we have, to help companies like Northvolt to complete their successful scale-up to compete against bigger operations abroad. If we can deliver some of these actions with urgency, then I think we can be sure that the targets we've set are enough and are sufficient. Thanks.
Yes, I'm going to agree, of course, with what Chris just said, especially on the absolute need to keep in place the legislative gains of the past mandate. Okay, so that regulatory framework provides a direction and a pace for investment. And that's absolutely critical to maintain certainty, visibility on investment. And so if you remove that certainty, investment will suffer. Okay, that's absolutely critical to keep in mind. Second, let's keep in mind that many of those frameworks that were agreed are not yet implemented. So AVERE, which regulates public charging, is already in place. But there's framework that will look at private charging, that's not yet implemented. Electricity market design, very important, not yet implemented. Same for RED 3, which is going to channel additional investment into private charging, public charging. Okay, so that's, those effects are going to be felt at some point, but they're not felt yet, of course, because those frameworks have yet to be fully implemented. That said, of course, there's still some work that has to be done. I'm going to focus on just one point, right? Basically, the work that has to be done is remove the rest of the roadblocks, remove the rest of the blockers, okay? So one particular blocker that for the EV charging industry is, I think, driving everybody nuts, it's permitting. So why permitting? Well, there are some elements in the transition that are genuinely difficult, right? Securing critical raw material is a genuinely difficult discussion. Upskilling, reskilling workers is a genuinely difficult question. Permitting is not a genuinely difficult question. Permitting is just a simple administrative process that we choose to design. So that is a pain that we choose to inflict on ourselves and that needs to be removed, right? It's a low-hanging fruit, something that we can easily change. It just takes a little bit of focus, a little bit of prioritization. And what's that going to do for charge point operators? It will allow them to deploy resources where they are more productive, and will allow them to deploy faster. So just a concrete example of what can still be done, and just, we shouldn't always be comparing ourselves to China, but just one part of comparison for China. Permitting in China to get your grid connection, 3 months. Permitting in Europe to get your grid connection, 2 years. Okay, so let's keep that in mind and look at where we can improve a little bit our game in Europe.
All right, well, we'll definitely come back to that point as well, Lucie. What is that capital doing in those few years that it's just sitting idle? But now, Eddy, over to you, please.
Thank you. In fact, they've already said everything, so I can only make a synthesis of the very good intervention. So I think that you pointed very well that we have legislated a lot. I think that you have pointed very well on the important point. First of all, we have legislated a lot under the previous commission. So you refer to AVERE. So now that the member states will have to implement AVERE to make sure that the national plans will meet the requirements of the regulation. So we have, I would say, a distribution of the charging point on the territory. What I appreciate from your intervention is the fact that notwithstanding the fact that it is true that the sales for the moment are not encouraging the recent months, so I can understand that it's certainly a source of concerns, but what I hear from you is that first of all we have to continue investment and we have to, I would say, build on certainty, because if we start to diverge from the initial objective, so then for sure there will be no clarity for anybody, neither for the industry, neither for the citizens who will not know what to buy, I would say, for as the future car. So on that, I think that we have to be very firm, even if there have been a lot of requests recently to review certain targets, in particular the end of the combustion engine by 2030. I would say so far the position of the Commission is that we should keep the targets as they are, perhaps with some refinement, but not to change the objective. But what we have to do, that you have pointed out, is to work on the industrial aspect to build a really EU industry. And if you read the mandate letter of our commissioner designate, that's precisely what he will have to present under the clean industrial deal. He will have to present a sustainable transport investment plan, which should precisely look at how to scale up the supply of fuels for the different mode of transport, maritime, in aviation, the sustainable aviation fuels, and also for road transport, for the electrification of road transport. So this document should, I would say, assess the needs in each mode of transport, analyze what are the gaps, and then the measures which we'll have to put in place. First of all, in terms of funding, because we arrive at the end of the multi-annual financial perspective and of the very limited amount that we have under the alternative fuel facility. So we'll have to look what instrument we will need in the years to come, but we have also to look at how we can accelerate the procedure in the member states, in particular for electrification. It's not normal that when we have a company wishing to build a new parking with recharging points, they have no visibility on when they will get an authorization to connect the recharging point with the network and how much they will have to invest. So we have cases where companies have simply abandoned their project simply because of the uncertainty concerning the connection with the grid. So that's one point on which we will definitely have to work. So a little bit put aside the legislation, keep it as it is, implement it, but then work on building a EU industry, in particular, commit the member states to not only invest, but accelerate the procedure. Perhaps a point, if I still may say, about funding, because we look at a bit the future multi-annual financial perspective, but we have also money which is there that we could use to help citizens to buy and to decarbonize their activities and to buy electric cars. That's the Social Climate Fund. You know that roads and buildings are now subject to ETS, to the emission trading scheme, which will generate huge amount of money for the member states, and part of this money will feed a fund which will be managed by the EU, the Social Climate Fund, which will go up to 65 billion euro to be used between 26 and 32, not only for transport, it will be used also for buildings, but we have to make sure, with the help of everybody, the member states, all stakeholders, that we can keep a big share of this 65 billion, plus a top-up of the member states. So we will arrive to quite a substantial amount of money of 86 billion euro, so SCF plus the member states, for transport and for building. But again, we have to make sure that we will, let's say, make sure that member states in their national plan will include transport decarbonization of transport as part of the measures that will be funded by the Social Climate Fund. So we'll have to use also all the leverage to, let's say, accelerate and to help the demand to grow up.
Yeah, I think this issue of demand side, focus on the demand side after the last mandate, focusing very much on the supply side and the governance framework for that is a really interesting topic. So let's talk about that for a moment. Are you saying that this roughly 86 billion euros in the social justice fund could be used for, say, purchase incentives for individuals who wanted to get electric vehicles or other vehicles if the member state wanted to structure it that way?
In fact, the structure of this social climate fund is very much open. So basically, that's revenues from the application of ETS to road transport. So meaning that the benefit will be to promote a decarbonized solution for land transport, not only road, but it includes road, railway, public transport. We could invest in different elements. It could include infrastructure, but it can also include mobile assets, which, by the way, is not possible under the AFIF. It is only infrastructure, but the Social Climate Fund is very much open, not only for cars, but it could be also for trucks, bicycles, whatever can help people to decarbonize their activities and have access to, let's say, new technologies.
Carla, may I ask you to respond to that? I mean, how would you feel if there were more purchase incentives available in the market?
So thank you. I think that's a great question. So when we talk about having a framework, I think there are a couple of things that are super important. Firstly, we want to have infrastructure, charging infrastructure, so that customers do not suffer range anxiety and they know that they're quite safe if they take a long journey. So any improvement in the infrastructure is a tremendous support. Secondly, we would like to see more green energy. So it absolutely makes sense if we can close the loop and, you know, we're powering mobile cars with green energy. Taxes and incentives are also fundamental. What we're doing is we're driving change. We're driving change. We want to make it easier for customers to feel that buying an electric vehicle doesn't pose them with a risk, that it's good value, that it's convenient, and it's not unsafe. It's not insecure. And I think any support that we can give, whether that's for rebates or whether that's incentives in terms of subsidies on the price of the new car, it really helps to stimulate the market. And we've got to build the awareness amongst customers of the benefits of electric vehicles. Many customers, as I said, do not really understand what the technology offers exactly yet, and still feel anxious because they don't have a lack of knowledge.
I'm wondering from the audience, has everyone in here driven in an electric car? Has anyone in the audience actually listening to this panel not driven in an electric car? Okay, we've got a few perspectives over there. What about recharging in public? Have any of you had the experience of recharging your EV in public? A few. Has anyone not had the experience of recharging your EV in public or an EV you were driving? Okay, so even here at the New Mobility Congress, we clearly have work to do to educate people, to have people have the experience of driving an EV or being in an EV and recharging in public. So, I mean, I think it shows that we start at home, right, and then expand out.
And I'd really like to encourage you to have the best of the new technology here. So take the opportunity, seize the moment.
Yeah, I don't know if there is a test drive program happening outside, but we should ask the PSNM folks if in fact there is. Maybe during the intermission you can let us know. Yes, ma'am.
We have 8 cars here for test drive. Please walk to the financial services, Volkswagen Financial Services desk at the back of the hall and book the test drive.
Okay, so I'm looking at you all. You should absolutely take Carla up there. Go try your test drive, and please don't leave here without having driven an electric vehicle for yourselves. Anyone else want to talk on the, yes, Lucie, you do, on the topic of driving an EV or availability of EVs? We'll get to charging next.
I wanted to support the point over there and provide some reassurance on the EV charging side, because I think that's part of one thing that we can do a little bit better, right, which is provide that reassurance to EV drivers, potential EV drivers that are considering switching to an EV. But that's also a discussion that would benefit from being fact-based, data-based, right? So what does the data say? The data say targets that have been agreed, not by us, right, by them, by EU policymakers. Those targets are met today in 26 out of 27 member states, which is not too bad considering
the charging targets,
the charges,
fleet-based
talking about the
charging
public
targets.
EV charging infrastructure. Okay, so how many, what is the deployment of EV charging infrastructure that you want to see in Europe to support the uptake of EVs? Well, those targets are already met today in 26 out of 27 member states. And again, those are not even my numbers. Those are your numbers from the European Commission, okay? Which is, pretty good. And then you add on top of that, the public charging infrastructure is just the tip of the iceberg, a point that I keep making and need to keep making, right? That's 10% of the charging infrastructure that is available. The rest is not visible. The 80-90% is private charging, right? It happens, at the workplace or at home, and none of that is visible. And yet that is by far the majority, where the vast majority of the charging takes place. But also when you compare, when you think in those categories, public-private charging, what you're actually doing is applying the old model, the refueling model, to the new world, right? Yes, maybe, it's going to look a little bit different to charge along highways, but can you refuel your car at home? No, you cannot do that. Can you refuel your car at IKEA? No, you cannot do that. Can you refuel your car at Decathlon? Also not possible. Okay, so we're not trying in the EV charging world to replicate the refueling world. We're inventing something new. And some of the things that are possible in EV charging today are not possible in the refueling work. And that's also a convenient story that I think both OEMs and us would have some interest in pushing a little bit more forcefully.
Okay, Eddy, since she did specifically reference those were your numbers, I don't know if you want to add anything on that, and then we'll get to Chris.
I would say that, yeah, indeed, infrastructure is very important, but I think I'm quite confident when I see the evolution of the recharging station, the number of recharging stations, and very important, the time to charge. I would say that we have really to invest in fast recharging, so limited the time. If we can do that, I think that we will definitely will be more attractive, I would say, and then the sales will hopefully go up again. And I think that when it comes to public funding, we'll have to really to target what we want to support. In particular, I think that fast charging will have to be really our focus for the years to come to accelerate the development of charging. By the way, you asked about experience about charging. I have no experience because I've still two cars, conventional engine, but my son has an electric car and he's quite happy with his car. So I think that we have to bet a little bit on the young generation, also for the olders, but certainly for the young one. And I see, for example, a very nice experience in Belgium. I don't say that because I'm Belgian, but in Belgium, there is no rebate in terms of tax rebate unless companies invest in electric cars, in zero-emission cars. So basically, no, in Belgium, there are only zero-emission cars which are purchased, so invested by the companies. So you see that there you really create a market, a dynamic to then scale up the sales of electric cars. So I very much believe that besides grants, which in any case are limited, because both governments and EU has limited funds, taxation can definitely be a very strong leverage for the uptake of electric cars.
I mean, I agree. So taxes have been mentioned by you. They were mentioned by Carla. And it's clear. So if your son will be role modeling an EV experience for you, so we can see we can learn things from younger people. And also, I think it's not fair to say you have not recharged in public anymore. You did this morning. Okay, Chris, go for it.
Yeah, just come in. You mentioned corporate leasing, and in the mission letters of the European Commission, you've committed that there will be bringing back on the table the corporate leasing legislation in the next cycle, which we think is a fundamental way which we can take that demand a step further, make things easier, not just in Belgium where things work well, but across all of the member states. This is a massive market and it's a place where we really can pick up the demand. And then the second thing, going back to what you said a while ago, Eddy, about looking at the Social Climate Fund and things on the table, that's encouraging because we hear a lot the urgency from the business side that we need action to get people buying and to improve competitiveness, but often a message from the policymakers side that, okay, we hear you, but we have to wait because we're at the start of a political mandate. We've got to wait for the commissioners. We've got to wait for the member states to adopt the MFF. And I always have a worry that these two things are working at different speeds. You have the business speed and the politics speed. So it's good to hear you saying, no, we do have some things on the table and we're looking at how creatively we can use that to address some of the challenges we have in the e-mobility sector with getting people buying, getting people purchasing. So anything we can do to increase the speed and the urgency of the policies, I think is great.
Super. You had talked earlier, Chris, about industrial policy. So I would like to dive into what exactly are the elements of that or the ones that you have fully fleshed out. And I'm wondering if they are supportive of what Lucie was saying earlier about the need to think about electric vehicle driving and recharging as fundamentally different than that of a combustion engine vehicle, in that context as well.
Yeah, I mean, from my side, I've worked for 10 years on the battery sector, the raw material sector. So when I look at industrial policy, I mean, one big difference between the two vehicles is an electric vehicle is a battery on wheels. And that means, firstly, we need, as best as possible, to have the battery supply chain here in Europe to make sure that we're creating jobs from this e-mobility transition, because we will be losing jobs as we move away from internal combustion engines. There's a massive potential for bringing hundreds of thousands of jobs to the 1.7 terawatt hour of announced cell capacity projects we have across Europe, if we can drive those projects forward. So I think a fundamental objective of industrial policy should be making sure those projects can scale up. That's hard to do in the global environment today when China has such a dominant position in this sector. We've seen that with Northvolt, and make sure they're well set for the long term. And I think finance can play a big role to help these companies compete on a level playing field. It's still 35% more expensive to build a battery manufacturing facility here in Europe than it is in China or the US. And that competitiveness gap is something fundamental that we need to bridge. And then one last thing just on the difference between the engines, I think the flexibility benefits of these vehicles too is something which hopefully we can have a lot more attention to in the next policy cycle. the massive potential for these batteries in our cars to be helping the grid with its flexibility needs and saving costs for consumers at the same time. And that's a real success story we can then bring back to our consumers about the benefits of electric vehicles too.
Eddy, can we bring the question that Chris raised the issue of the competitiveness issues? On one hand, we have a onshore battery ecosystem in order to be competitive. But on the other hand, examples of it not happening right now, or let's say maybe policy is not yet adequate or is not yet delivering on that. Can you speak to that? With an eye also maybe towards what needs to be done in the near term?
There are a lot of things that have to be done. Yeah, indeed. We have to invest in the whole chain, in particular in batteries. We have under the Horizon Europe a partnership to develop batteries, but that's definitely something on which Europe should, I would say, gain in terms of autonomy, because we are definitely very dependent, I would say, on external supply, which might, in the years to come, definitely become critical. So we have to invest in raw materials, then we have instruments which have been put in place at the level of the Euro Commission for the development of raw material, and definitely to promote the production of batteries in Europe. So building also, I would say, on the circular economy, so the recycling of batteries. So there is certainly something to be done on that. One point which I've not the answer, in fact, because we complain a little bit on the fact that the sales are going a little bit down. So my question a little bit, perhaps, but that's for the car industry. Did we invest sufficiently in cars which are affordable for everybody? And did we not miss the opportunity to do so while China has already invested, and we see more and more of these cars which are definitely more affordable for citizens? So there, you mentioned the question of competition. So there, I think that there is really a fierce competition which is in front of us. And by the way, the car manufacturers are requesting that we postpone the end of the combustion engine, which is foreseen for 2035. But is it really the solution? Is the solution not to look at what we are putting on the market, and is it really corresponding to the demand?
Carla, are you able to speak to this, at least from your own perspective?
Perhaps to talk about investment, within the Volkswagen Group, we've, let's say, put our money down. We've converted entire plants to electric production. So in Emden and in Zwickau, those cars only build electric vehicles. And that really is, I think, proof of the pudding. However, we do need to recognize that China is cost effective. They're building electric vehicles on a massive scale. And these vehicles are entering Europe, and we need to persuade customers that the cars built in Europe are good, and make sure that we can protect our industry and develop the industry for Europe as well. So it's a step-by-step chain. When you start a production factory, it impacts your entire supply chain as well. So just one change making an electric factory impacts so many people, suppliers, and the entire supply chain as well.
Can you speak to the issue of the mid-size market at all? Point that Eddy made, that there's a lot of investment in higher end of the market for electric vehicles, but not as much as he's receiving in the mid-size, mid-price range of the market. Okay, so obviously most manufacturers started to develop electric vehicles in the higher ranges, bearing in mind the cost of investment and setting up battery plants and so forth. However, I think it's common knowledge now to say that even in the Volkswagen Group, we are looking very much towards introducing an electric urban family. These are cars that will be priced under 25,000 euros. We will be presenting them to the market next year. So this starts to make electric vehicles much more accessible for everybody. And we will introduce one small car from the Volkswagen brand, and one small car from Cupra, and one small SUV from the Volkswagen brand, and another from the Skoda brand. So we really are trying to democratize
electric vehicles now and bring them down to the right price point.
Super. Lucie, will there be enough charging infrastructure for all these cars?
There will be, as I just mentioned, but I want to go back a little bit to what was said about the affordability, that mismatch that we're seeing between the needs of people, maybe of fleets, and what's being produced. So at some point, there has to be a reconciliation between, the supply and the demand, right? And so we know that there are vehicles that are coming, that are more affordable. I mean, I'm second-gen, I cannot afford an EV, right? So let's think about that.
Your board is noting. Your board is noting.
In the meantime, there's the rest of the initiatives that can still be taken to stimulate the demand side, right? So the corporate leasing initiative was mentioned. Of course, once you have that, what that's going to do is trigger or encourage that building of second-hand EVs coming into broader market, coming to broader people at more affordable price. So we hope to see that proposal materializing very soon, because in terms of democratizing access to EVs, that should be an important one.
Super. Okay, quick gun, Chris.
Yeah, it's just next year, very exciting. There's a lot of affordable EV models coming from Volkswagen and other European OEMs. So we're in a bit of a perfect storm right now today with these slowing sales. But next year, when the targets hit, all of these affordable EVs coming to the market, can be a good time to buy an electric car, and hopefully we'll see that upswing. So some optimism.
Indeed. That's almost a great way to end on, but we're not there yet. Carla, one other thing you mentioned was green energy. And could you elaborate on that point, please? And part of the sort of partnership framework you want to see is green energy being provided.
Yeah, we would like to see that the customers are able to charge their cars using green energy. We do believe that climate is an important element, and therefore that's an important element for us. But maybe just to segue into charging, which many customers might think is inconvenient, I would like to say that nowadays the car does a tremendous amount of help for a customer. Many of the cars now, you just type in where you want to go, like in navigation, and the car plans your routes for you. It plans your charging for you. And if you've got a charge card, you probably can charge at all of the charging stations in Europe. You'd have really a security in terms of price. It's a one touch. And I think it gives incredible peace of mind. So green energy and a good charging infrastructure, no range anxiety, these give peace of mind, and these are elements that persuade customers to buy electric cars.
That's a wonderful point. That's a wonderful package that you've presented. Eddy, do you see sort of future policy opportunities there to support this world that Carla is describing for us?
I think that you made the point. We have really to create a network which will allow people to travel through Europe. So we have to go beyond, I would say, the first step of electric cars, which were just to commute between work and home. So that's something that we will build precisely based on the Trans-European Network policy, on which we will plug the development of infrastructure. So making sure that we will develop infrastructure really all over Europe at regular intervals, so making easier over time to charge fast charging and charge basically where you wish.
Super. Okay, so we have 90 seconds left, and I think it's time for final words from our panelists. I'm especially curious in what sort of initiatives or short-term or immediate-term actions should we work on next in order to get us out of this hopefully slump that the industry is in now towards the next better year that's ahead of us, especially with the policy framework that we have behind us. Who wants to start? Lucie?
I'm happy to start. So I don't think we discussed too much the grid, but I think that would be our top one over there. And I'm very encouraged to see that in the slate of incoming commissioners, there's additional actions that are foreseen on the grid. It's the foundation of everything. So of course we want to make sure it's robust.
Super. Chris?
Yeah, let's keep the certainty in place, keep 2035 our trajectory, get through this year to next year when things should look better. But let's not forget the urgency of acting to give our businesses the enabling conditions they need to compete, to scale up, and to be there providing jobs and growth in the long term.
Thank you, Carla.
I'd like to say that the future belongs to electromobility. Let us not lose sight of this fundamental goal. It is proceeding slightly slower than we anticipated, but we've got to keep our eye on the ball.
Thank you so much. And final word, sir.
Two important milestones for the future Commission. As we said, we will present a sustainable transport investment plan. So we have to make sure that everybody will be behind us on that the industry will be a partner in this plan. And second, very important point, we will start next year the discussion on the future multi-annual financial perspective. So there a very important rendezvous. We will fight SDG move to have, let's say, a substantial part of the cake, but it will be very important that the voice also come, let's say, from the ground, from the industry, to make sure that transport is well served for the future years for the public funding.
Thank you all very much. Thank you to our audience for sticking with us. Hope you enjoyed it.